r/NoSleep. Posted by u/ladderlocksmith483. I got a strange call last night. I think my life is in danger. 3 a.m. There I was, laying in bed. Not sleeping, of course. Insomnia's a bitch, and there ain't much you can do about it. I've suffered from it, on and off, for my entire adult life. My teenage years as well, now that I think about it. One thing I've learned, laying there with your eyes closed in bed, it's not as restful as actual sleep, and it can be pretty boring, but it'll help a little, with the exhaustion the next day. But trouble sleeping was the least of my concerns, that night. I got a phone call, which was more than a bit odd. Some of my friends are still out at this hour, but I don't usually get calls this late. Or this early, take your pick. The number was unfamiliar, so I refused the call. Probably a misdial, I thought. A few moments later, it rang again. Same number. I shook my head, probably one of those so-called friends, maybe they lost their phone, had to borrow another? I had no clue, but resigned, I picked up. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. It was a woman's voice, and a particularly gentle one. With a distinct ring of urgency, she spoke, "Please, whatever you do, don't hang up. You don't know me, but I promise you, I only want to help." I was confused, but as I opened my mouth, I heard a gentle knock at my bedroom door. Fear immediately took hold. Somebody was in my apartment. I started to reach for the revolver in my bedside table, but the woman spoke again. "Don't answer the door. It can't get in, if it's locked." Ignoring her, I grabbed my gun. As I stood up, she spoke again, louder, more urgently, "Don't unlock your door, please. I promise you, everything will be fine, but you absolutely mustn't let it in." The knock repeated, a bit louder this time, and I found myself hesitating. The woman on the phone breathed a sigh of relief, and my anxiety started to grow. I hadn't said anything, yet, so why was she relieved? I know it doesn't make any sense, and I know you don't have any reason to listen to me. But no matter what, I promise you that you will be okay, if you just listen to my instructions. I finally responded to her, and asked, "Who are you? What's going on?" Not the most creative line of questioning, but she answered, "I'm a friend. And, you would never believe me, I'm sorry to say. Nobody ever does. But sometimes they listen, and when they do, they make it to the end, they survive, so please, please don't hang up, and whatever you do, don't unlock your door." As she spoke, she seemed on the verge of tears. Again, I opened my mouth to reply. This time, the knock on the door was booming, the sound of a fist slamming against the thin, hollow wood. I stepped back, and lifted my gun, aiming for the door. I was sweating heavily, my heart pounding in my chest, the air felt thick, and I wanted nothing more than to pull the trigger. And then, all at once, it stopped. I wasn't afraid, or even anxious. The woman on the phone, a bit less tense, said, "It's gone for now. It will come back, and when it does, you must not open the door." I started to ask another question, but she interrupted me. "You left your front door unlocked. Go and lock it now, please." I stepped warily towards my bedroom door, and hesitated for a moment before unlocking it. My apartment seemed untouched. I knew I could not have imagined the slamming on my door, but not a single thing was out of place. My initial hypothesis, that it was some sort of psychotic burglar, started to feel less plausible. The front door. The woman reminded me. I put my gun down on the coffee table in the middle of the living room, still holding the phone in my left hand, and moved towards the door. As I reached for it, I suddenly heard footsteps, fast, loud, rushing and getting closer. The woman, for the first time, shouted, "Lock it. Hurry. Even one will do." I heard a hand grab the handle on the other side of the door, just as I slid the bolt in place. Outside, something snarled and knocked, gently, on my front door. I turned the lock in the handle as well, and took a step back. "You did it. You're fine. It can't get in now. Please, don't leave your apartment until morning." The woman hung up almost immediately after, and I was left, alone, to think about what I'd heard. I returned to my room. Collecting my revolver, I decided to leave it on my nightstand, rather than to put it back in the drawer, and incredibly, I fell asleep soon after. When I woke up, it was 11 a.m., my day off, fortunately, and I started to wonder if the events of the previous night were just a dream. But my revolver still sat on the bedside table. I went to make myself a cup of coffee, and nearly jumped a foot in the air when I heard a rapping on my front door. "Open up, police business," a gruff voice called, and I relaxed, a little bit. I went over and, swallowing nervously, unlocked and opened my front door. 2 officers were standing in the doorway, and at least 6 more were out in the hall, questioning other neighbors. "What's going on here? Did something happen?" I asked, and the gruff officer replied, "Last night, there was a murder on your floor. We want to ask you a few questions." The questions were pretty standard, and I didn't want to make a suspect of myself, so I obliges. After the police left, I immediately locked my door again. I was, to say the least, terrified. I still am. I don't know what that was last night, but I know that if I hadn't listened to the woman on the phone, I would most likely be dead right now. It's nearly midnight, my front door is locked and bolted. Tomorrow, I might go out and buy a big-ass padlock, just to be sure. Because as I'm typing this, somebody is knocking on my front door. And I don't want to take any chances. Anybody know what's going on? Next story of this video. Posted by u/ladderlocksmith483. We went exploring in the old drain tunnels beneath my town. It was a mistake to come here. My name is Gabriel, and I have no idea where I am. It was about a day ago, when it started. My family is what you'd call successful. My grandfather was a stockbroker, and back in the 70s, he made a killing. He retired for a few years, but when video games started to really explode, he opened a couple arcades, and well, it was a smart move at the time. Now, they don't make all that much money, but we're still pretty well provided for, via all the cash he hoarded before the arcade crash. Just a bit of background. For my 22nd birthday, I had a hell of a time, all my friends together. We pretty much rented the entire bar and got entirely hammered. And that's when Zach had an idea. It was a completely idiotic idea in hindsight, but well, we were drunk, and we went along with it. For whatever reason, Zach thought it would be a good idea to go exploring the dark, old drain tunnels beneath the town. I've always been a fan of horror. Me and Zach became buddies due to a shared interest there, and the easiest way into the old tunnels is about 4 minutes, by foot, from the bar. So we said screw it, finished our drinks, and wandered out to go on an adventure. At first, we were honestly too inebriated to even feel fear. Not only that, but another of my friends, Tony, was there. A bit of background on Tony: he's a really nice guy, literally one of the most outgoing, friendly and altruistic guys I know, and he could kill all of us with his bare hands if he ever wanted to. His dad started him on karate when he was 4, I've seen him take down 3 guys single-handedly, without breaking a sweat, and then apologize afterwards. He's the real deal, and so naturally, any thoughts of what if some psycho is lurking in these tunnels was easy to push aside. No psycho would be a match for Tony, you'd need about 10, minimum. And so we laughed, and tried to spook each other, and wandered too far, into that darkness, with nothing but shitty phone flashlights to guide our way. The drink started to wear off a bit, and that's when Julio, the 4th and final member of our little expedition team, asked if anybody had kept track of all of the twists and turns. We got creeped out for a minute, but our phones still had signal, albeit not great. Even if we were lost, we could dial 911 and somebody would come for us. So maybe we were lost, but it didn't matter. It was my birthday, and we were having fun, and Tony was with us. Until he wasn't. I don't know when he disappeared, and I don't know where he is now. I want to believe that he got out, that he changed his mind and went back, and left us here. It would be a selfish, shitty thing to do, but I would forgive him. We called out his name, again and again, tried to backtrack, but nothing. He was gone, one way or another. And that's when we got scared. None of us were what you'd call badasses, by any definition of the word, and while our town is on the small side, it has a big meth problem. I'll tell you this now, there weren't any meth heads down in the tunnels. At least, no living ones. We found the body while we were looking for Tony. It was rotted all to hell, but there was still an old black hoodie clinging to what was left of the torso, so obviously it couldn't be Tony. He came in wearing a white tank top, he had the whole Bruce Lee look going on. But that corpse sobered us up in an instant. After we finished vomiting, and screaming, and generally losing our collective shit, Julio decided it was time to dial 911. His phone can't make a call while the flashlight's on, though, so with shaking hands, he deactivated it, and started to dial. That's when we saw Decay. You knew, the instant you saw it, that its name was Decay. Elemental and pure, decomposition and entropy given gruesome, abominable form. It was Decay itself, and Julio didn't even have time to scream. It engulfed him in an instant, in a body born of worms and bone and long dead flesh, and he was gone. Julio didn't have time to scream, but we did. An instant later we were running, Zach and I, no longer concerned with getting out, We sprinted away in the damp darkness, deeper into the tunnels. Anything to get away from that horror, the living embodiment of the inevitable. And after a while, fear gave way to exhaustion. We collapsed onto the wet ground, and we wept, uncontrollably, for, God, about an hour? More? You lose track of time, when you're traumatized by the impossible. And when we collected ourselves, Tony and I did the same thing. We called 911, and shakily told them that we were lost in the tunnels, that 2 of our friends were missing. That we needed help. The officer on the other end seemed tired at first, the end of a long shift getting to him. But the moment we mentioned the tunnels, his voice changed, it became grave and stern. Stay where you are. Keep both of your lights on, and we'll try to find you. Those were his words, we'll try to find you, no guarantees, no promises. He knew what we weren't saying, what we wouldn't dare say. Not because we were afraid that he wouldn't believe us, but because we didn't want to believe ourselves. We sat in silence for a while, and then Zach stood up. He said he wanted to look for a way out, that there was no way he was going to just sit and wait for someone to find him. What he meant was, he wasn't going to wait for decay to find us. I tried to stop him, but maybe a part of me wanted him to go. Maybe to find his way out, to lead the officers back to me so that we could both escape with our lives. Or maybe I thought that if he was taken by that thing, it would be sated. That it might let me go. Pretty selfish, right? Now you know why I wouldn't judge Tony for leaving us, if he did indeed leave us and get out. I've been laying here since then. It's been more than 12 hours, must be daylight out now, for a long time. Nobody's found me, so far, but I don't have much time left. My phone's battery is running low, it's below 20%, another hour or 2, and I'll lose my light. Actually, less than that, the flashlight stops working at about 5%. I'm not sure whether I should sit here and wait, whether I should try to find a way out. Or if maybe, I should just turn out my light now. It's still here, somewhere. Zach didn't get out, Tony didn't get out, and God knows Julio won't ever leave this place. I'm just kidding myself, hoping that they escaped. I can try to leave the light on, to hold out for a little while longer, to cling to the tiniest shred of hope that somehow, this place won't be my grave. But in the end, you can't outrun death forever. And you can't outrun decay.